The New York Rangers are absolutely livid over the reaction of the NHL to the Tom Wilson situation. We're going to discuss the statement that the Rangers put out and what might come next, coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have some more reaction here on the situation from last night between the Washington Capitals and the New York Rangers. Of course, in case you missed it earlier, I put out a video discussing the situation where Tom Wilson's been fined $5,000 for roughing, and it was mainly for the punches he threw against Pavel Buchnevich while he was lying on the ice. However, the situation that resulted afterwards with him basically ragdolling and body slamming Artemi Panarin to the ice, there was really no repercussions at all for that. Like, he was given a fair bit of penalty minutes on the play, but still, when it comes to supplementary discipline, George Parros didn't really hand out much of anything from player safety here except for a measly fine, and many people are extremely outraged against this, me being one of them. I think it's a really bad look from the NHL. I'm sure there are some people that disagree, and that's fine. However, the New York Rangers are especially mad, which you can certainly understand, considering that one of their players, and not just any player, a star player under long-term big-time contract, has been injured and will be out for the rest of the season. Hard to say exactly how many games he would miss if the season was longer or if this would have happened earlier in the year. But they put out a really, really strong statement. The Washington Capitals have already said they're not going to respond to the statement. They're going to let the league handle it from here. Essentially, it's really against the league more than anything else, but it is to some degree against the Capitals since it involves their player, Tom Wilson. So let's put up the statement here on the screen, and we're going to read through what the New York Rangers had to say. Their statement reads, "The New York Rangers are extremely disappointed that Capitals forward Tom Wilson was not suspended for his horrifying act of violence last night at Madison Square Garden. Wilson is a repeat offender with a long history of these types of acts, and we find it shocking that the NHL and their Department of Player Safety failed to take the appropriate action and suspend him indefinitely. Wilson's dangerous and reckless actions caused an injury to Artemi Panarin that will prevent him from playing again this season. We view this as a dereliction of duty by NHL Head of Player Safety George Parros and believe he is unfit to continue in his role." So essentially, the Rangers feel like this is completely mishandled, and they're calling for Parros' job as a result of it. Clearly, they're not happy that star player Artemi Panarin was handled the way he was by Tom Wilson. It was hurt on the play. He's going to be out for an extended time. As I said in the other video, in case you missed it, I really went on a bit of a rant here because I was really upset over it. The fact that they don't want to protect their players. Artemi Panarin was that close to going really hard head first into the ice, which could have ended his career, maybe even worse. And it makes me wonder if it's going to take a more severe result to get more action, not only from Parros, but player safety, which is a bit of a joke as a whole. And it's ultimately on Gary Bettman, the commissioner. Now, there's also a little bit more information that's come out this evening, and this comes from Rick Carpinello, who covers the Rangers for The Athletic. Now, this is only what they're hearing from sources. This is not obviously 100% confirmed, but still, if there's truth to this, and you have to think that there's at least some, it's kind of a telling tale where Bettman and player safety feel about a lot of these situations. Now, I'll give you a quick snippet here from his article that went up on The Athletic today, talking about Wilson's most recent suspension, which resulted from a hit against Bruins defenseman Brandon Carlo. Now, Brandon Carlo has been out for an extended period of time, has had a lot of complications from the concussion, including mood swings, dizziness, blurry vision. He's having one heck of a time here, and clearly the NHL doesn't seem to take this too seriously. According to sources, Carpinello says here that he's heard that Parros did not even want to suspend Wilson for that hit, but Gary Bettman thought it might give a bad look, bad optics, and they thought they should. It's not even so much because of the hit itself that they were concerned more about the PR. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous. That goes to tell you that they don't give two shits about the players. Like, that's insane if this is true, because it's just not right. They're there to protect players. Like, as I said in my video earlier, Players are people first. They come as athletes and hockey players second. Their quality of life and their right to lead normal lives and healthy lives are just as important as their ability to earn a living playing a sport that they love. And it's absolutely insane how some of these players are treated. And players like Tom Wilson, who can't seem to control themselves, become predators. And the problem here is, like I said earlier too, is that nobody hardly can stand up to the guy. I mean, there's not too many players around the league that are as big and strong and tough and can actually, hold their own with him, except, look at maybe like Ryan Reeves in Vegas, and there's not many others. And that's a huge problem. So are we going to see the NHL kind of resort back to having teams that have like what you call your prototypical goon, like the policeman that plays 4 or 5 shifts a night, but he's there to kind of keep things simmered down and protect the other players, that other guys won't be taking liberties with them because they know they got to answer to the big guy on the bench? I mean, the NHL wanted to get away from that, and they wanted to show off the skills. And now look what's happened. You get some of these guys that have the skills, but also have the size and the toughness and the intimidation factor like Wilson, and he can run rampant through the league, and nobody can do anything about it. And it's really unfortunate. We've seen so many injuries as a result of his reckless play and his ability to control his violent nature on the ice. It's something has to be done. Like I said also in my video earlier, it takes me back years ago. Depending on your age, you may not remember this. You may have only heard of it. You may not be overly familiar. But the whole Todd Bertuzzi, Steve Moore incident gave me flashbacks. And Steve Moore was a young hockey player who had his career taken from him and ruined over the reckless behavior of Todd Bertuzzi. And it could have very well been the same scenario. And I think that my biggest issue here is it looks like the NHL will only react as a result of what's going to happen, not the intent and not what was really close to happening. You would think they'd want to prevent somebody from having a life-altering injury on the ice if they can help it. Maybe prevent people from, even worse. Is it going to take somebody to die on the ice? Like Gary Bettman and the NHL, as much as I love this sport, they need to protect their players, because right now player safety is an absolute joke. And I stand here with the New York Rangers. I'm proud of the fact that they spoke out, because something does need to be done. Whether or not we're going to see any actions from this, well, hard to be seen right now. I won't be completely shocked if the NHL fines the Rangers for speaking out against it because they don't agree with the league and how things were handled. I won't be surprised if that happens. I won't be surprised if they maybe even retract this statement because the NHL puts pressure on them. I mean, I hope they don't, but I won't be shocked if it does. But the New York Rangers are speaking out. They want George Parros fired. They don't think he can be capable of doing this job. And ultimately, as much as I fully understand the sentiment, I'm just not sure that we're really going to get change. I don't think it's going to matter who is that spokesperson, who is the head of that department. It has to come from the top. It has to come from the league, and Gary Bettman has to be the ones to basically tell them how to do their jobs, because they're the ones that set the parameters and the rules and all those things. All the GMs, they're the ones that have to invoke the change. As we said earlier, players were saying online, like a guy like Ryan Whitney, former NHL player, very well-known media personality, said, all the other teams would love to have Tom Wilson. And you know what? They're right, mainly because Tom Wilson can't hurt them if he plays for them. It's a shame because the guy has skills. He can play hockey. He can give you 20 goals. He can give you, 40, 50 points. He can be a physical, intimidating presence. He does not have to go out there and have these acts of violence where he completely impacts people's lives like this. It does not need to be that way. And if the Capitals don't want to take the measures to work with him to contain that, then they're just as culpable in my opinion. So I don't think we're going to see anything change from this. I'll be shocked if the NHL comes back and somehow lays any extra discipline on Wilson as a secondary review. I'm not even sure they can do that. I don't know. So we'll see what happens. But I hope for the Rangers' sake that they're not given any grief over the fact that they're speaking out, because I'm glad somebody did it. And let's just hope that maybe, just maybe, we can see some actual real change here. And for once, the NHL will actually start to protect their players. I don't care who they are. I don't care if it's Artemi Panarin, Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, or if it's your fourth line plug or your number 7 defenseman. It should not matter. These are people. They deserve to have a safe working environment, just like everybody else. And until the NHL takes that seriously, I'm royally concerned that something bad is going to happen out there, much worse than what we've seen last night, whether it's Tom Wilson or one of the other players around the league that has bad reputations. But obviously Wilson's probably the worst the repeat offenders that they have. If they can get him contained to change his style of game or whatever they got to do, I don't know. I'm not sure how to get through to this guy. But what he does out there, to me, is just not acceptable. If he had his head rammed off the ice, I guarantee he wouldn't be too happy about it, so he shouldn't be doing it to others. Just that simple. So let me know your thoughts on the Rangers statement. Do you think we're going to see any real change? What kind of reaction are we going to get from the NHL? Let me know your thoughts down below, and we'll try to respectfully discuss this further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and we'll keep you up to date with all the news from the entire NHL. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.